night, but when he was still there, starting today, I didn't think he was going to last that long. But just we actually were trying to get up and trying to get up, but we were just so far down. A lot of people don't want to really trade that far down, so we just kind of just stayed pat, and we were just thrilled that he landed there. Look, he had some medical stuff he had to go through last season. So, and then he battled it kind of throughout the spring process as well. So I think that kind of set him back a little bit too. But just thrilled how it panned out. Questions?
That's an incredible amount of attention you paid to one position group this offseason. What do you think that competition is going to look like come training camp?
Yeah, I mean it's a bloodbath in there now. It is, and that's what makes everything better. That's what makes the room better, makes the defense better, makes the team better. Competition just brings the best out of everybody. So, look, it's something that we didn't go into it saying that we were gonna get two corners. In the first two rounds, we really didn't. It's just he was the best. He was the highest graded guy, for us at the time. So we went ahead and you know how we roll. We went ahead and got him. But those were also our top two ranked corners as well. It's an all things considered process, not just stats and highlights. That's it's a lot of things that's involved in those rankings. But we're just thrilled because they're all the same in terms of they both fit us like a glove. They're both gritty, physical, challenge mentality guys. They can press. I know I talked about Terrion a lot yesterday, but sticking on Enos, a guy that saw him on film first and thought he was going to be a lot smaller, and he was thinner the year before. But when I saw him at the LSU game, Mizzou LSU game, his frame looked good, and he looked like a guy that can play outside and survive. And then you see how he is in the run game, and how he get up and face some really good receivers in the SEC. So, but yeah, just thrilled how it felt there.
If you were trying to trade up to get him, was he that much higher than like the next player on your board that you felt?
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of guys that we had that highly ranked. It was really just a couple of guys that we had up there where that's like, they would have been possible considerations at 29. So, it was a couple of those guys. So we were trying to get one of them. One of them went, and then Enos was still there, so we went ahead and got him. So, again, we don't really care the position. It's just we just take the best player. It just happens that it just fed up. And look, it's something that we've always been trying to find that future at that position, and it never really matched up. It never really lined up. We were never really, we weren't in a position to get one, or we just had a better player, at another position ranked over that, another corner. So it's not anything that we've been ignoring or anything. It just really hadn't been lined up, and we're not going to reach for a corner just to get a corner either. So, yeah, super ecstatic that we finally got some future in youth at that position.
A little unique that those guys were on the same visit together. Yeah. Just what did you like about them? Maybe off the field, their mentality, their football IQ. What was it that stood out about those two guys when you got a chance to sit down and talk to them together?
Yeah. So, first of all, going to Terrion, I talked about just the personality and just big energy, big personality, very very confident. Enos is actually different. You feel the confidence, and me and Dan sitting there talking to him, I just kind of felt dog exuding out of him. Just a lot more quiet, just kind of to the point, to the business, not as loud and vocal and vivid personality like Terrion was. And again, that's how all of these kids are. It's actually a really fun process where all of them are just, we're asking them a lot of the same question. You get these different answers, and they're all different personalities. But Terrion and Enos, both of them, you really felt like, okay, these guys fit who we're about. These guys fit our culture. But it was something about Enos, just the competitiveness, the drive, how he talked about his story, how he talks about his process, how he talks about just the details of ever since he came out of high school out in Texas, and just the whole recruiting process, and then when he got to Missouri, and his whole thing about these receivers that he's been against in the past, with going against Pickens, and he just all these things that I was like, man, this guy's about one of the more competitive kids. Just talking with him, so it's not only that I felt a competitive dog out of him, but he was speaking it too, and his tape shows the same thing.
Top golf,
Huh?
you can take them both to top golf. Did you?
No, it would probably have been a good little tournament though.
The four corners that you've added in Carlton and Meek as well, is there something in the self-scout process between you and maybe even AG? Just you identified a skill set you wanted to add that these guys kind of have?
Yeah, and me and AG have had conversations about that, and again, you really open, transparent conversations about just kind of what the process has been about, kind of really solidifying that position, but I know exactly what we want it to look like. Often when I was in LA with the Rams and playing against when Dan and AG were with the Saints, I actually thought it was one of the more suffocating defenses that we went against. Just everything just felt very tight and suffocating and sticky, and it was just a lot of it was hard to find separation. So going against that kind of defense, I had a really good feel of what Dan and AG kind of wanted that defense to be like, and that's what we've been striving for. Look, we had a lot of work to do on defense. Like I told you guys back in maybe around owners meetings, there was maybe a little bit less work to do with some of the offensive linemen that we had in place when we got here, but defense was a complete start over basically, and so we just had kind of been doing it brick by brick, but again, we're not going to reach on a position. We're not going to just draft a corner just because he plays corner. No, it's got to be the right football player, and so it just so happened that this year Terrion was the right football player. Enos was the right football player. They just happened to play the corner position.
Right. The depth chart thing and right draft for me or whatever, but do you ever I don't know, question like, can we double up? I mean, you've doubled up on positions in the past, but then we do need a receiver, we do need whatever else it may be. Like, can we really afford to do that? I don't know, you're in a good spot, but does that ever cross your mind? Do you ever have to wrestle with like that thought?
No, I really don't. I mean, you look at it and you don't probably wouldn't draft 7 corners. You would probably want to do that, but the board probably wouldn't be shaped like that. At some point, there's going to be another player at another position, that's probably ranked higher. But eventually, it probably hits a maximum. But but we were kind of lacking some youth, especially on the outside there, and so that's why it lined up. But yeah, again, it's hard for us. It's hard for me and Dan. It's hard for our staff to have a guy that's a really good football player that fits for us, and you say, oh no, we already took that position. Let's get this other player that he's not as good as this player at the same position. Let's get another player at another position that's not as good because he plays another position, or a player that we're not that fired up about, but he plays another position because we just drafted that same it's hard to sleep at night to do that. So that's how we've operated so far to this point, and that's what we'll keep doing.
You have so many guys who have so many different stories of how they get here. I mean, Terrion told us earlier today about how he had that light bulb moment when he got benched after the Tennessee game. Enos was just telling us how he went to a football camp and got turned away at the gate. Whenever you have guys that face that kind of adversity on the field, how does that factor into your evaluation process?
That's huge, and that's something that really is very important to us when we're talking to these prospects about, telling us about adverse moments, and in all the way they answer that question, some of it is football related, some of it is life related, but I just think that's a very important, it's a very critical factor that plays in the success of a lot of these players, because when you get to this level, it's hard. You can have a lot of success in college, but it's hard up here. The competition is different. The grind, all the standards set on them. It's hard. It's pressure. So sometimes, you just can have some days where you might not feel like doing that extra. You might not feel like you get late in the season, man, I got to get up early again and go to the weight room and get treatment. It gets hard. And so when guys that will grind through and persevere, and it's grits all over this place. And so the adversity piece is a big deal for us. And a lot of the guys that we've acquired, they've had good stories about persevering through it.
Given the logjam at the position, is there a player given the logjam at the cornerback position? We'll call it a bloodbath then. Is there competition at the position? Is there a guy amongst that group that you think has the versatility to maybe kick inside a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Terrion has played inside and out. Enos has played inside and out. And, it was funny funny you brought that up. Me and Dan were talking this morning or, early afternoon about, the potential of another corner being the best player and us taking another corner. We talked about that. We didn't know it was going to happen, but we talked about that. And we knew that these guys were, it's not just, we got outside corner. We was like, no, they're DBs. Like, they're DBs. They're versatile. They can play outside. They can play inside. These guys can play special teams if they're not starting or playing. So that's the beauty of all of it. There's guys that we thought could play nickel and safety, and it's like, yeah, no, we have a safety. We have a nickel, but there's nothing wrong with adding another one. So the versatility component is big for us. And that's kind of the approach that was last year too. When we, got, E-Man and Sutton and CJ and all those guys. It wasn't about just kind of fitting those DBs in boxes. It was just the versatility, just getting smart, gritty DBs.
The decision to bring in Townsend and then drafting Arnold and Rakestraw, obviously decisions made kind of individually, but what intrigued you the most about bringing those three things together?
Well, obviously, got a lot of respect for Deshae in terms of, I know he's that way, but I think Deshae was telling me that he was still wanting some more. So, Jerry, you said logjam, but I mean he was still asking for some more. So,
Justin, last one would be a little greedy here, double dip, but intentional fashion decision today in the war room. Can you just tell us a little bit about what the meaning is here with your updated villain?
I mean, I don't think I've ever released kind of what villain really means. So, we'll still keep that in house, but just the positional part. I got hip to positional value last year, so I just just a little spin on it. So.
And then it's a unique situation for you here. It's a really long gap between your next pick. I think a little bit over 100 picks.
Yeah.
We know you love the draft. Like how difficult is what you're facing here? And obviously you've got devices to move back in. How much are you, I guess, willing to use future assets if the player's right?
Yeah, I'll consider anything if the player's right. It was funny, like going in today, kind of went in today thinking like we're just going to sit there at 61 and just stay pat and see what falls to us. But, we were actually making calls trying to get up to, the high 30s and 40s. And so, I don't know, I just kind of woke up with kind of an aggressive mindset. And there were some dudes still up there that we really liked, and we were just trying to get them. But then you also got to look at, okay, these resources that you allocate to move up in the future capital and all that. We also have meetings about, okay, what's that going to look like, when this time comes next year, or what's that going to affect, what we might have to do in the future. I try to be very, very mindful of not being a prisoner of the moment, and it seems like every single year there's going to be a day two darling, you know, that you're like, oh my gosh, I really want, you know, and sometimes you got to catch yourself. And it's like, yeah, I mean, last year it was, you know, Laporta, you know, and it's always going to be that person. Now we had the pick to acquire him, but you got to just be disciplined from that standpoint and kind of go through that. You're willing to go through the consequences, if there is any, for what those move ups can mean for the future.
So who's your get back guy in that scenario? That
You know, it's not really some specific get back person, but the communication and dialogue of our internal group is very healthy, and it helps out a lot because someone might point something out about, you know, well, if this happens, if you do this, then this, that, and that could come about. And some things that I've already thought about that I've come to peace with, and I said, yeah, I get it, but let's go ahead and do it because it's for the betterment of the now, and we can survive in the future. Or sometimes it's a point that's brought up that say, you know, that's gonna hurt us too much in the future. You guys have heard me talk about the marshmallow experiment, and so sometimes you got to just embrace that delayed gratification a little bit.
Just to be clear, that this hoodie's your idea and then everybody else warm in sort of solidarity?
You think this will be mine? Can't tell everything. No, I just, you know, we are looking for villains, you know, and so when I got tipped off on what positional value was, I didn't know what that was. I didn't. So and it was just like a new analytic. I didn't know what it was. So when you guys showed it, I was like, oh wow, that's. And then I thought about it, and I was like, positional value. And I was like, so you pick a position, but not the player. And I was thinking, I was like, no, we're looking for football players. So we're looking for these guys. And so, but it doesn't matter. So it's more positional villain.
But you wanted the words with a line in between.
Yes.
Yes.
You never heard position value.
Huh?
You never heard position value.
No, I haven't. I mean, what I'm saying, I never heard of it. I understand the word, I understand the term, positional value. Like, oh, well, you want to get a quarterback over, you know, whatever. Like, I understand that, but I didn't know it was like a thing where you would draft a position regardless of the player. And if you draft, you know, because I think that's very easy. Just like what I talked about like free agency in the spring. It's like, yeah, you can win the headlines in March and April and all that stuff. Well, it's like, that's easy to draft. Whatever the premium positions are, was it quarterback and edge rusher and tackle and those positions. Say you draft only those positions, but they're not contributing to your football team. So did you win the draft? Did you win the draft because you drafted those positions, but they're not contributing to the football team? Or do you draft the best football players that are contributing to your football team and making you a better football team? So we're trying to draft football players that contribute and make us a better football team versus just so. That's when I heard in that light about just draft this position. That's when that's the part that I couldn't really come to grips with. I didn't really understand it. So.